Hello and welcome to another adventure at West Country Wanderings. Not so much an adventure today. Just come on the train, just a very short distance to the city of Gloucester, the county town of Gloucestershire, of course. It's not too far away from Liv. I've had a trip, kind of a long journey into Cornwall, so I didn't fancy doing any driving before Christmas. So I thought I'd come here to Gloucester. I'm going to take you to a church, and you probably think, oh, we've done lots of churches on West Country Wanderings, but this church is, I think you're going to find it really interesting. It lies next to some ruins, a ruined abbey in the city, and it was restored a couple of years ago. I think it was 2019 it was restored. So it lies next to Greyfriars Priory or Abbey, and it also has a crypt, which gives you a clue to its name, and I'll tell you more about the story of the name in a bit. So why not join me here on West Country Wanderings for a trip to St Mary de Crypt here in Gloucester. Well, it's a very chilly day today. It's only 3 degrees. No, I can't sing any of their songs. We're not going down that road today. I'm currently talking to you and standing in what is the remains of Greyfriars Priory. Now, Greyfriars Priory was established back in 1219 by one Thomas of Berkeley. Yes, the Berkeley family of the famous Berkeley Castle when we explored that deer park near Berkeley a couple of months ago now. So yeah, they were the benefactors of this, and it was a Benedictine priory. It was actually rebuilt, extensively rebuilt in 1519, but it seems quite a waste actually, because only some 20 years later in 1539, something we've come across many times on this channel, was the dissolution of the monasteries due to King Henry VIII, and of course it then became closed up. But although this is right in central Gloucester, literally the Eastgate shopping centre is just over that way, it's remarkably preserved, having survived 2 Second World Wars, and of course a lot of rebuilding that went on in places like Gloucester and Worcester and Coventry in the 1960s, where lots of places like this were torn down. But thankfully it has been preserved, and there's still a lot to see. Now, the plaques behind me, and I'll insert an image, a bit of a close-up of those, represent the family crests of the Chandos and Clifford families, who were benefactors of the Abbey here in Gloucester. I'm currently sat in this square here, which has been restored. It's actually in between some housing on to the front of me and the remains of Greyfriars Priory behind me here. But what's interesting is the fact that it's been landscaped in an unusual way. You have these seats, and I've done some monochrome photographs so you can see those, with the quotations inserted on top. But as far as I can understand, what this site was originally was the orchard for the priory that was behind me, the abbey. So this is where the Franciscan monks would have actually grown the fruit, which would have sustained them, and there would have been apples and pears, probably local breeds or species of those apples and pears, right here in the centre of Gloucester. I'm currently in Mary de Crypt churchyard. It's actually been restored. Now, just to explain a little bit about the logistics of coming here from the station is because, as you know, I don't like busy places at all. And we're still before Christmas, so you'll probably see this after Christmas. And obviously there's still a lot of Christmas shoppers around, and it's right about midday. What's it, 22nd of December today. And of course, people are coming in to do their last minute Christmas shopping, and you've got the shopping centres here. What I did was actually chose my route very carefully coming out of the railway station. I've gone down these interesting lanes and places I've not actually seen before to make my route here to Greyfriars and this particular church here in the heart of Gloucester. What we're going to do in a minute, I'm going to tell you a little more about the history of this church, and then we're going to have a look inside and see if we can have a look at the crypt as well. Then I'm going to grab a coffee and we're going to go down to have a look at the River Severn. I thought I'd give you a taster of what's coming up when I do the Severn Way. So this church here has gone under various different names. It's also been known as Christ Church and St Mary's Church, but it's now known as St Mary de Crypt because obviously it has a crypt. It was founded in 1140, and that's when detailed records of it were found there, and substantial restoration project was done in 2019. There is also a separate exhibition hall. I'm not sure if that's open today. If we're done, we'll go and have a look at that, and as I say, we'll now go in and have a look around. Well, there's something ahead of me I didn't expect to see on my visit to Gloucester today. We're at a place called Olney Marshes. I tried to film around Gloucester docks and decided it was too busy because obviously high risk of COVID, and because of that I needed to keep my mask on. So I've come here. I've actually crossed over the River Severn, but I can't actually see it. It splits into two channels, as we'll talk about more when we do the Severn Way. But yeah, this is the view from where I am at the moment. As you can see, we've got cows down there on the footpath. This footpath and cycle path, I think it's National Cycle Route number 45. It actually takes you to a place called Over, which is where the main road goes on down towards Chepstow in South Wales, or across into Herefordshire. Places like Ledbury, which will be coming up on the channel not too far away. I've just spotted a seat over there, so I'm going to grab that and tell you more about this fabulous church that I've seen, and then I'll insert some footage that I took when I went round it. Sorry, it's still really cold today. Having to keep the old hat on. I didn't bring my tripod because reasons. Obviously I was on the train and obviously walking through crowded areas. I didn't want to be near with that, so I've just got my Joby, so I've just put it up on a post. Hence a slightly weird angle, so I apologise for that. It's not best from a photographic point of view, but it just gives me a chance to tell you more about the church. Now, the first thing to say is it was built around about 1140, although parts of the church are much older than that, and of course it plays an important role in Gloucester's overall history. Next to the church was the Crypt School. Now, this was founded adjacent to the church in 1539 by Joan Cook, and she got the money. She inherited it from her husband John, so he died, she got the money, and she set up the school. And the original schoolroom I had a chance to have a look around that today because a very kind gentleman called Naz, who's a volunteer guide there, showed me around. So I'll insert that now. It's not normally open to the public. They have got a downstairs bit which has a coffee, but I managed to get behind the scenes view of the upstairs, which was actually restored in 2019. Mr. and Mrs. Cook were both buried in the church, and the north transept includes brasses to their memory. Another interesting fact about the church is that obviously the English Civil War, there were lots of battles around this part. You obviously probably know about that. I've talked about the Battle of Worcester, the Battle of Tewkesbury, and obviously there was also the Siege of Gloucester, which we covered when I did the Cotswold Way. I can't remember the number. I think it was probably number Cotswold Way 2, possibly 1, long time ago now, because you have the siege stone there. But in 1643 they actually stored gunpowder and armaments in the church, which is really strange. Obviously not something you'd expect. It certainly wasn't something that was designed for its original purpose. Now, George Whitfield was one of the original starters of the branch of Christianity called Methodism, the Methodists, and he actually did his very, very first sermon in St. Mary de Crypt. I think the year was 18. Yeah, there we go. 17, way back in 1736. So he started preaching in that church. He did several sermons thereafter, and of course then he travelled on to set up the Methodists, and obviously the other key person with that is John Wesley, who we came across when we did the video at Red Truth and Gwenat Pit. Now in 1811 Robert Raikes set up his very, very first Sunday school in the area, right close to St. Mary de Crypt. In fact, immediately opposite, on the opposite side of Southgate Street in Gloucester, is Robert Raikes' house. It is now a pub. I'll insert a photo of that so you can see what that is, but it's a fantastic, it predates Robert Raikes, the building. It's just called Robert Raikes because obviously that's where he set up the first Sunday school, and it was the very, very first Sunday school in the entire country. Now, we've just had Christmas, because of this video will be going up after Christmas, but one of the most famous things about Christmas is, of course, Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. And a very famous character in A Christmas Carol is one Ebenezer Scrooge, of course. But Charles Dickens actually based that character on a real person called Gemma Wood. That's a gentleman, and he ran the Gloucester Bank. It was an independent bank. Now, if you go back into economic history, the main national banks, a lot of them went under during the Napoleonic Wars. They went completely bust. But his independent bank kept going. And so it became really, really popular with investors that had a lot of money, and because of that, of course, he made a lot of money himself. But he was a really, really mean and tight-fisted person by all accounts. In fact, he would never hire a carriage to get him around this part of the world. He would always walk. And he was so tight, he would never order coal to keep his house warm. He actually would go over to Gloucester Docks, where I've just walked through just now, and in the night time he would trawl up and down the quaysides looking for scraps of coal which had fallen off the tram trucks making their way into the barge boats, and he would just put those bits of coal into his pockets. I don't know how many pockets he had, probably must have had lots with all the money, and he would use that to burn the coal at his house rather than pay for it. So yeah, Gemma Wood, and obviously Charles Dickens at the time heard about this character and based Ebenezer Scrooge, obviously an important part of the Christmas story with the Christmas Carol there, in terms of that moral story. Now, as we said, the church was built in the 12th century, and it includes a number of surviving Norman features. I'll try and include some of those now. The kind gentleman called Naz gave me upstairs access, which gives you a viewing platform across the top of the church, so you can see those fabulous Norman arches. I'll include that now. One of the most significant is the well-preserved carved tympanum over the west door, which of course opens into Southgate Street, which depicts the Angus Day, the lamb and the flag, symbols of the resurrection of Christ, based on the book of Revelation. The church was rebuilt and extended in the late 14th century, incorporating some of the 12th and 13th century work, and further work was carried out in the 15th and 16th centuries. The crypt referred to in name is at the western end of the nave. Now sadly it's not actually open to the public at the moment. They are doing some renovation work with it. Now when I spoke to the gentleman there, he said it will be reopening next year, but only to guided tours. So if you go on the website for the church, it has a brilliant website telling all about the history. They will have days when that crypt was open. Notwithstanding that though, you can actually go onto the website and it will give you a virtual tour of the crypt, and I'll put in a link for that in the comments section below. The nave is 15th century and includes a 17th century Renaissance style pulpit. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tour here today of St Mary de Crypt and Greyfriars Priory here in the city of Gloucester, in the heart of Gloucestershire. It's not my kind of usual one. As I say, I don't normally come to cities because they are busy, and that's why I've come out of the city to walk to these meadows here. In fact, it's the Severn floodplain. I'll include some shots of the River Severn, and we'll be seeing that again, of course, when we do the Cotswold Way. No, that was last year. This year you'll be seeing it. Well, by the time you see this, it'll be last year, but you know what I mean. So later on you'll be seeing the Severn Way. I will be coming back to Gloucester, however, at some future point. I'm still going to find it very difficult because the counties of Herefordshire, Gloucestershire and Worcestershire are known as the three counties, and of course all of them have fabulous cathedrals now. I will be doing those cathedrals of Gloucester, Worcester and Hereford at some future point. At the moment in my head I'm finding that a rather daunting thing, because this church that I've just visited today, which is one of the many churches in Gloucester with spectacular history, Gloucester Cathedral has an overwhelming amount of history, which obviously has great connections to the monarchy, as does Worcester, as does Hereford. We will cover it at some point, however, because it is a magnificent building. There is another church which I'm going to cover when I do the Severn Way, not Cotswold Way, Severn Way, called St Mary de Crypt, or another St Mary de Crypt, because it's next to the ferry, but it's no longer next to the Severn, and I'll explain why when we walk through Gloucester towards the end of the Severn Way. As I say, I'll include some shots of Gloucester docks to the video today. I hope you enjoyed it today. I hope it's not too late to wish you a very happy new year. All the best, and I hope to see you soon. If you hit subscribe and hit the bell, then YouTube will tell you when my next one comes up. And if you consider a comment, that I'll be really interested to hear, particularly if you've been visiting churches local to you. I'd also appreciate perhaps a like or a share with a friend or relative. Until next time, all the best. Cheers now, look after yourselves. Take care. Bye bye.